Hello once again. I wasn't sure what I was going to read today, um, and I had a couple of ideas of what I should look through downstairs in my library. And Hermann Hesse came to mind, so I brought upstairs Steppenwolf, Siddhartha, and Demian. And I chose Demian first, and I said to myself, let's see if I've highlighted anything. And I scanned through the book, and sure enough, I did. And I highlighted the passage I'm going to read to you today. But first, I want to share with you a little anecdote about this book. My brother Brian turned me on to it when I was still in elementary school, and I brought it with me to school to read in the odd moment when I had the opportunity, and I had it sitting on my desk. And Sister Regina, I was in eighth grade at the time, and Sister Regina came walking down the aisle, and she saw the book sitting on my desk. She looked at me, and she looked at the book, and she took the book, and she walked away with it. Of course, at the time, one didn't say, hey, what are you doing with my stuff? Especially to Sister Regina, whom we were all deathly afraid of. So I said nothing, and I had the reputation of being a dirty book reader for a while. A few days later, she came walking down the aisle and put the book back on my desk and turned away without saying a word. I took that as a compliment. Anyway, the passage from this story I'm going to read to you seems to have some relevancies to our current condition. The context of the story, Hermann Hesse was German, and he's writing within that context. In Germany just before World War I. And in this part of the story, Demian is talking to Sinclair, who is the speaker in the story. It's written in the first person. And this is what he has to say. He spoke about the spirit of Europe and the signs of the times. Everywhere, he said, we could observe the reign of the herd instinct. Nowhere freedom and love. All this false communion, from the fraternities to the choral societies and the nations themselves, was an inevitable development. It was a community born of fear and dread, out of embarrassment, but inwardly rotten, outworn, close to collapsing. Genuine communion, said Demian, is a beautiful thing. But what we see flourishing everywhere is nothing of the kind. The real spirit will come from the knowledge that separate individuals have of one another, and for a time it will transform the world. The community spirit at present is only a manifestation of the herd instinct. Men fly into each other's arms because they are afraid of each other. The owners are for themselves, the workers for themselves, the scholars for themselves. And why are they afraid? You are only afraid if you are not in harmony with yourself. People are afraid because they have never owned up to themselves. A whole society composed of men afraid of the unknown within them. They all sense that the rules they live by are no longer valid, that they live according to archaic laws. Neither their religion nor their morality is in any way suited to the needs of the present. For 100 years or more, Europe has done nothing but study and build factories. They know exactly how many ounces of powder it takes to kill a man, but they don't know how to pray to God. They don't even know how to be happy for a single contented hour. Just take a look at a student dive or a resort where the rich congregate. It's hopeless. Dear Sinclair, nothing good can come of all this. These people who huddle together in fear are filled with dread and malice. No one trusts the other. They hanker after ideals that are ideals no longer, but they will hound the man to death who sets up a new one. I can feel the approaching conflict. It's coming, believe me, and soon. Of course, it will not improve the world. Whether the workers kill the manufacturers or whether Germany makes war on Russia will merely mean a change of ownership, but it won't have been entirely in vain. It will reveal the bankruptcy of present-day ideals. There will be a sweeping away of Stone Age gods. The world, as it is now, wants to die, wants to perish, and it will. And what will happen to us during this conflict? To us? Oh, perhaps we'll perish in it. Our kind can be shot too. Only we aren't done away with as easily as all that. Around what remains of us, around those of us who survive, the will of the future will gather, the will of humanity, which our Europe has shouted down for a time with its frenzy of technology, will come to the fore again. And then it will become clear that the will of humanity is nowhere, and never was, identical with the will of present-day societies, states, and peoples, clubs, and churches. No, what nature wants of man stands indelibly written in the individual, in you, in me. It stood written in Jesus. It stood written in Nietzsche. These tendencies, which are the only important ones, and which, of course, can assume different forms every day, will have room to breathe once the present societies have collapsed. A bit uncomfortable, perhaps, to think about, but something to think about. Anyway, take care. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.